Hey guys, welcome back to Wandering Out Wellness. Finn and Lydia here, your usual, as your hosts. And today we have a really special guest, Christy Cashman. Christy is an author, actor. She's founded two charities. She co-hosts wellness retreats. She does so much stuff. And it was amazing for us to do research this, to try and dive into the essence of this person, this amazing kind of aura that is Christy Cashman. I suppose for our listeners and viewers and those who haven't come across you, who is Christy Cashman? How did we end up here? How come we're on the Wandering Wells podcast? And what is your link to Ireland, I suppose?
You make me sound very important. Thank you.
Well, you've done it for this.
And an enigma. I'd rather stay an enigma. No. Well, I've done a lot because I've tried a lot. I'm not that young, and so I've had a lot of experience. I ventured into the film world a little bit in my 20s, and lived out in California. I lived in New York. I was doing some modeling, and in some ways, those experiences in some way were my university of life, because I learned a lot at a really young age, and so much of learning, I think, is dealing with all sorts of different personalities. Mm-hmm. I was very lucky that I came from a great home life. I have 9 brothers and sisters. My parents have both passed, but gave me a very solid foundation, and so leaving home early, I think wasn't that difficult for me. It was more of an adventure. I loved it. I loved, meeting all the people. I just felt like the moment I left Brevard, North Carolina, there was this huge adventure out there in the world. And I find it a little bit sad because in some ways I don't think that maybe I don't see it correctly, but I don't think that kids see it that way now. I almost think that they're afraid of leaving and venturing out, doing their own thing. And even my kids are, kind of, stick closer to home, and they don't really go out. But that was I had a real kind of, a zest for life at a very young age, and an adventuresome spirit. And I loved, as I said, going out to California. I did live with my sister initially, and then I was taking acting classes. I was reading scripts. I dated a producer. I mean, there was a lot done in a short period of time.
You grew up fast, yeah.
Yeah, covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. And then when I was able to give back, when I felt like I was in a position to give back, that was also important to me, And I think that a couple things. I think that working on other people's projects as a producer taught me a lot, reading a lot of scripts early on, understanding the anatomy of a screenplay, how to analyze a story, what's holding it up, what's holding up the story was very important for me to learn. And without knowing that I was being educated, while I was reading the scripts, I was hearing about, the sort of the script to screen process.
Yeah.
And I think all of that in those, earlier days gave me a lot of information on writing my novel, because my novel is very visual, as you might hear people talk about it. And it is being, pitched now as a series, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Is it Jane Seymour is co?
Yeah.
Cool.
She took it on as a producer. Yeah.
Nice.
So she
was like really. She came to my school when I was a teenager. They were filming. I can't remember what the film was, but they converted my school to a set one summer, and I was like one room away from Jane Seymour, and I had grown up on Dr. Quinn Medicine, and that was a big old deal for me. I was like, oh,
yeah.
So interesting.
I think it's still big in Ireland. I think it still plays regularly on certain channels in Ireland.
I believe it. I well believe it. It's got legs.
Yeah,
it's got legs.
Yeah. She's been a sort of godmother figure for my book and the story, because after she finally read it, after I finally got her to read it, because she's a very busy lady, she then almost instantly said she wanted to, helm it as a film or series or whatever it became. She wanted to be part of the adaptation process, which
Amazing.
Is pretty cool.
Getting a script in front of somebody in that kind of tier. I know I know very little about the film world, but I know there's sorts of ways and means, and there's things you have to go through, and you have to know the people, and da 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 da. Do you think that getting the truth about horses out into her lap and getting her involved? And is that because you knew the industry, because you had a background there, or was that just because it's a great story, she loved it and she's like, how did that all come about?
Well, we became friends first. I think I mentioned that I'd written a book, and I was, right when I met her, I was at the process of getting my book published. And so there's all of these different, boxes that you have to tick in order to, once, you sign off all of the rights and everything. And not sign off the rights, but once you have it bound at the publishers with all of the praise pages, with, exactly how it's going to look on the shelves when it's in the bookstores, and, the deliverables essentially. And so I was in the process of doing that, and a big part of it is getting blurbs or reviews from celebrities, from people whose name someone might recognize on the cover of the book. And I had gotten a couple. I had Colin McCann, I had Joyce Carol Oates, I had Cy Montgomery, and a few others. And Jane, I just felt, well, what a coincidence. I've just met her. I'm just publishing the book. Wouldn't it be amazing to have her name on the review? And I just had a feeling she would like it also, because the content is kind of similar to the content I've seen her produce. Mm-hmm. And so she was really busy, though, shooting Harry Wild and all the other stuff she does, her Open Hearts Foundation and everything that she does. She's just always in the middle of so many things, which is one of the reasons I love her, and she's like a mentor to me. But it was a pure miracle, essentially, that got her to read the book, because there was the writer's strike. So she couldn't then work on anything. And she couldn't talk. And then there was an actor's strike, right? So she couldn't work on anything. She couldn't talk about anything. But she could talk about my book. And so the fact that she had time to read it was because she didn't have to be working on, memorizing her lines for Harry Wild or the next scenes or whatever. And so she was able to read my book. She said, basically from the moment she landed, she said, after she read it on a plane, she said, I want to be involved with this. And that was just luck. And it was also, I should mention, are you familiar with the actor from Ireland, Alan Devine? He was the one who introduced him. You'll know when you see his face.
I've one of those moments, yeah.
Yeah, he's the one who introduced us, because he had a part in Harry Wild. And I guess they killed him off. I guess he was a villain. Otherwise, Jane would have loved to have had him back. but anyway, thanks to Alan, actually, he introduced us to Jane. He introduced me to Jane, and she came to see my mentorship program in action, which was taking place at Kilkea Castle. It's a mentorship for kids who are interested in getting into the arts, and it's immersive. So it's an immersive sort of experience in the arts for kids. And I hosted that in Ireland. I'm also hosting it in a couple of weeks in Boston for the second time. There are 12 kids coming from Ireland, so that's a lot of fun. But anyway, Jane, that's how that happened. It was just pure luck. It was Alan Devine luck, and I actually think she really, I think my book's pretty good. So
yeah, that's good. That is true. And so, just like on that process, so one of the things, this guy called Sander Katz, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's like a fermentation guru, American guy from, I want to say like Kentucky or something, but amazing guy. He's got this beautiful Southern drawl, and I'm gonna mess it up. But when I met him a couple of times, and one of the times he was talking about, because he's been involved in businesses that have gone from, small cottage industry into big, warehouse production line, and he was like, in talking about the nature of production, he's like, production is the death of passion. So like, I suppose my question for you, you see so many Hollywood movies, so many projects coming from book to film, book to cinema, and like, how do you keep the joy or the essence of the creative spark? Like, I feel like it must just get ground out of you in the process and kind of get lost. And actually, sometimes you do see in films where you're like, amazing writing, amazing actors, amazing director, and just the end, it's just very flat. And is that a result of that, do you think, or what's going on there? And how do you
Well, all I can do is talk from my experience. And it's really interesting that you asked this question, because as I was rambling on at the beginning, I was going to get to this. But it is an important part of my story, because you would think that since I did have experience in film and that kind of thing as my background, that I would have written a screenplay, which is actually what I thought I was setting out to write when I wrote The Truth About Horses, which originally I had called Beautifully Broken. But when I started writing, the voice came to me as much more of a, novel, long form voice. And I had to go with that. And I had to go with it because of the way that I was writing description, the way that I was telling the story really came strongly to me from this POV of this 14-year-old girl. And when you have a strong POV and the voice is very strong, it normally for film, that's not ideal because it requires a voiceover. And that's considered a cheat in film. I mean, it can be done and it can be done well, but it's considered a cheat. And so I just wanted to write it in the most natural way that the voice was coming to me. The other thing that I think was going on inside of me and based on my past experiences in film was I was frustrated in the filmmaking process for the very reason you said so. Production is a great way of killing passion. And I found the technical aspect, the many different voices but many different people with their egos getting involved and steering projects into different places that maybe they should have originally been. Like, I feel like so many screenplays start out great and end up terrible and flat, like you just said, because of the process. Now, the process can either make it or break it, I feel. And I just felt like I wanted to have a raw piece of material that no one else could touch, that whether or not it was made into a film or a series or anything else, at least what I will always have is the book. The book.